He vanished the night the divorce was finalized. No note, no warning, no goodbye. One day he was there. The next he was just gone. Scarlett waited. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Nothing. Not a single call. Not a single message. Just silence. They had spent 7 years together. Built a life in a quiet town in North Carolina. Shared dreams, laughter, even grief. But when the papers were signed, David didn't just walk away from the marriage. He walked away from everything. Scarlett tried to move on. She told herself he was just a man who couldn't handle pain. A man who ran instead of facing it. But the truth, it haunted her. How does someone disappear like that? No friends heard from him. His phone? Disconnected. His family? Clueless. And then, 5 years later, he came back. He stood on her porch, holding flowers, smiling, like nothing had happened. "Scarlett," he said, his voice calm, "I never stopped loving you." What would you do? Would you scream? Slam the door? Cry? Scarlett didn't do any of that. She just stood there, frozen, like the world had stopped spinning, because in that moment, every wound she'd buried, every night she cried alone, came rushing back. But this isn't where the story ends. This is where it begins. Scarlett had rebuilt herself from the ground up. New friends, a new job, a small apartment, with walls that didn't echo his name. She had learned how to breathe without him. She wasn't the same woman he left. So why was he here now? David looked different, a little older, a little thinner. But his eyes, those same stormy eyes she used to fall into, were full of something new. Regret. He said he had made a mistake, that he thought disappearing would protect her from the mess he had become, that he was ashamed of who he was back then. He wanted another chance. Not just to talk, not just to explain. He wanted to marry her again. Imagine that. After 5 years of silence, he wanted to start over. Scarlett didn't answer him right away. She didn't even invite him in. She just closed the door, slowly, without a word. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat on her couch, holding a photo from their wedding day. 2 smiling faces, 2 hearts that believed in forever. What happened to that forever? Why had he really left? And could she ever trust him again? In the days that followed, David tried. He sent letters, left voicemails, waited outside her building just to see if she was okay. He didn't beg. He just waited. He told her the truth, that he had lost his job, gotten into debt, started drinking, that he'd felt like a failure, less than a man, and instead of facing it, he disappeared. Cowardice, that's what he called it. But Scarlett didn't want apologies. She wanted to understand. Could someone truly change? Could someone who once broke you be the one to heal you? That's the question she carried with her. Everywhere. And little by little, she started talking to him. Not about love, not about the past. About now. Simple things. The weather. Her favorite coffee shop. A movie they both used to like. No promises. Just conversations. Scarlett didn't fall back into his arms. She made him work for every step forward. She asked questions, hard ones. She listened to his answers, measured his honesty. And for the first time, she saw a man who wasn't hiding. A man who wasn't perfect, but who was finally real. Was that enough? Could love survive abandonment? That's what this story will show you, because what happened next will surprise you. Scarlett lived in a small town near Asheville, North Carolina, a place where the roads curved through green hills and everybody knew your name. People waved at stop signs. Kids played barefoot in the grass. The world moved slower there. After David left, that quiet became louder. The whispers. The sideways glances. She's the one whose husband disappeared, right? Scarlett pretended not to hear. She kept walking. Head up, chin steady. But at night, when no one was watching, she crumbled. She found work at a bookstore downtown. Page and Pine. It smelled like ink, old paper, and fresh coffee. Her coworkers became her lifeline, especially Mel, a woman with sharp humor and a softer heart than she let on. Mel had been through heartbreak too. She never asked about David, only listened when Scarlett finally talked. "You loved him," Mel once said, handing her tea. "But that doesn't mean you owe him anything." Now, Scarlett remembered those words the day David reappeared. She replayed them often. David had rented a small cottage near the edge of town. Not far, but not close either. He said he wanted to give her space. "I just want you to know I'm not running anymore," he told her. "Even if you never speak to me again." That felt different. He started going to therapy, got a job at a mechanic shop, started helping out at the church food bank on weekends. He didn't advertise any of it, didn't post on social media. He just lived. Quietly. Like he was finally trying to rebuild the man he should have been. And Scarlett? She watched. She didn't trust easily anymore. But she noticed things. Like the way he helped an old man cross the street without thinking, twice. Or how he remembered the names of the people at the coffee shop. Or how he never asked her for anything, not even forgiveness. He just kept showing up. Not physically, emotionally, present. That was new. Scarlett slowly started letting him back into her world. Not as her husband. Not yet. But as someone trying to make amends. One afternoon, they sat on a park bench watching the ducks on the lake. Leaves were falling, gold and red. David turned to her and said, "You don't have to love me again. But I needed you to see who I really am. Not the man who left." She didn't answer. She just nodded. Because part of her had started to believe him. Then came the dinner. Scarlett's younger sister, Julia, was visiting from Charlotte. She had always been protective, even a bit fierce when it came to David. "That man broke you," she had once said. "Don't ever let him near you again." But Scarlett felt ready. She told Julia she'd invited David to dinner. Julia's eyes narrowed. "You're kidding." Scarlett shook her head. Calm, certain. "I just want you to hear him out." The evening was tense. Julia crossed her arms the entire time. David answered her questions with a quiet kind of strength. "I know I hurt Scarlett," he said, "and I'll carry that, forever. But I want her to have the choice, not just the memory." Later that night, when the table was cleared and the wine was gone, Julia pulled Scarlett aside. "You believe him?" she asked. "I believe he's trying," Scarlett said. "And I believe people can change." Julia didn't argue, just hugged her, tight. That moment mattered, because it wasn't just about David earning back Scarlett. He had to earn back everyone, even himself. Weeks passed, then months. They went on slow walks, had long talks, no pressure, no promises. They cried together, laughed like they used to. But one night, sitting by the fire, David said something that cut deep. "I think I never really knew how to love. Not the right way. But you always did. That's what scared me. That you deserved more." Scarlett didn't say anything for a long time. Then she whispered, "You don't get to decide what I deserved. You just get to be better." His eyes filled with tears. He nodded. They were healing, yes, but not pretending. Every scar stayed visible. That's what made it real. It was a Sunday afternoon when the past came knocking. Literally. Scarlett had just stepped out of the shower when she heard the knock at her door. Firm. Repetitive. Not like David's gentle rhythm. She wrapped herself in a robe and opened it halfway. And froze. Standing on her porch was a woman. Mid-30s. Elegant. Cold eyes. "I'm looking for David Walker," she said, her voice flat. "I was told he lives around here." Scarlett blinked. "He doesn't live here." The woman studied her, then gave a strange smile. "Of course he doesn't." Before Scarlett could respond, the woman handed her a sealed envelope and turned away without another word. Scarlett stood there, water still dripping from her hair, heart suddenly pounding. The letter was addressed to David, but curiosity burned too hot. She opened it. Inside was a single photo. David, and a child. A little boy, maybe 4 years old. Blonde hair. David's eyes. The note attached was short. "You said you wanted nothing to do with him, but he deserves to know who you are." Scarlett couldn't breathe. Her hands trembled. Her stomach twisted. The floor beneath her feet felt like it had vanished. David had a child? A child he never told her about? She stared at the picture again. The boy was smiling. Innocent. Happy. And all she could think was, what else don't I know? That night she didn't call him. She sat in silence, staring at the photo. The flames in her fireplace dancing like accusations. And when he finally showed up the next morning, holding coffee and a nervous smile, she opened the door with the photo in her hand. No words. Just the truth. David's face drained of color. He sat down. Hard. Like the weight of 5 years had just collapsed onto his shoulders again. "She wasn't supposed to find me," he said. "She said she didn't want anything from me." Scarlett's voice was cold. "You said you disappeared to protect me, but was it also to escape her?" He looked up, eyes red. "I didn't know she was pregnant, I swear. I found out almost 2 years after I left. I tried to reach out, and she shut the door. Literally. She told me to stay away. Said I had no place in his life." "And you just accepted that?" David shook his head slowly. "No, I didn't accept it. But I was still broken, Scarlett. I had nothing. No job, no stability. I thought, maybe she was right." He paused. "When I came back here, I was ready to tell you. I just didn't know how." Scarlett stared at him. "You should have told me the second you came back." "I know," he said quietly. Silence settled between them. Heavy. Thick. Scarlett wasn't angry. She was devastated. The betrayal wasn't about the child. It was about trust. About truth. If their future was going to be real, it had to be honest. And right now, it felt like another lie. She asked him to leave. Not forever, but for now. She needed space. Days turned into a week. David respected her space. No calls, no texts. He gave her what she asked for. And in that silence, Scarlett did a lot of thinking. She sat at the lake where they had their first kiss. She drove past the chapel where they got married. She even walked the street of their old home, now lived in by strangers, with a new paint color and a different porch swing. Memories lived everywhere in that town. But the question was no longer, do I still love him? It was, can I love someone? Fully, knowing their past is still unfinished? One afternoon, Mel sat with her at the bookstore after closing time. "I don't think love is supposed to be clean," Mel said. "It's not a perfect line. It's a mess. A beautiful mess." if it's honest. Scarlett looked at her. But what if I can't trust him again? Mel smiled sadly. Then that's your truth. But don't make the decision out of fear. Make it from your gut. That night, Scarlett lit a candle, poured a glass of red wine, and sat with the photo again. The boy's smile was real, innocent, pure. None of this was his fault. She imagined David as a father, teaching the boy how to ride a bike, making pancakes on Sunday mornings, reading books before bed. Could she be a part of that? Could she forgive not just David, but life for being so messy? She picked up her phone and dialed. When David answered, his voice cracked. "Scarlett? Can we talk?" she asked softly. They met the next day at the park bench. Same lake, same leaves. Scarlett didn't waste time. "I need to meet him," she said. "Your son." David blinked. "What?" "You said you wanted to build something real. Then start by letting me see all of you. Not just the parts you think I can handle." He swallowed hard, nodded. "Okay. I'll talk to her. I'll do whatever it takes." Scarlett looked at, him, her voice steady. "I don't need you to be perfect, David. But I need you to be transparent. Always." "I will be," he whispered. "From now on, everything." And for the first time, she believed him. It wouldn't be easy. There would be more hard conversations, more shadows to walk through. But for the first time in a long time, there was light at the end. And this time, she wasn't walking toward it alone. Scarlett met the child on a Saturday afternoon in early spring. The air smelled like magnolia blossoms and rain-soaked earth. Everything felt soft, new. David picked her up in a modest silver truck. He wore a button-up shirt and jeans, simple but clean. His nervousness was obvious. He kept adjusting the rearview mirror even though it didn't need it. "Are you sure you're ready?" he asked her gently. Scarlett turned her head toward him, her eyes calm, voice steady. "Yes. I want to see the whole picture." The boy's name was Ethan. He had soft curls and a shy smile that only came after his third chocolate chip cookie. At first, he stayed, close to his mother, a woman named Laurel, who met Scarlett with quiet dignity. There was no tension between them, no jealousy. Just two women, living in the aftershocks of a shared past. Laurel watched her son laugh with David from a distance. "He talks about him all the time now," she said softly. "I never realized how much he needed him until I saw them together." Scarlett nodded. "He's a good man. It just took him a while to believe it." Laurel turned toward her. "And you? Do you believe it?" Scarlett didn't hesitate. "I do. For the first time in a long time, I do." From that day on, something shifted. Scarlett and David began rebuilding, not as strangers, but as people who had seen each other at their worst and still stayed. They started slowly, walks in the woods, coffee on the porch, cooking dinner together, laughing when the pasta stuck or the sauce boiled over. David got a new job with a construction firm in Asheville, one that paid well and offered full benefits. He started coming home tired but proud. He had found purpose again. And Scarlett? She bloomed. She took a writing class at the community center, started journaling, capturing pieces of their journey. Her boss at the bookstore offered her a promotion, and for the first time in years, she said yes. They were growing, together, but also individually. There were no dramatic fights, no shouting matches, just quiet, honest conversations. Late-night talks that ended in understanding, not tears. They learned to apologize without ego, to forgive without keeping score, to love without fear, and slowly the past stopped echoing so loudly. One evening, After Ethan had spent the day with them, playing in the backyard, reading on the couch, and falling asleep with his head in David's lap, Scarlett turned to David. She took his hand. "I want this," she whispered. "All of it. You, him, us." David's eyes filled with tears. "Even with the past?" "Especially with the past," she said, "because it's what brought us here." He pulled her close, and in that moment, they weren't rebuilding anymore. They had already built something new, something better. The wedding wasn't big, just close friends, family, and a white gazebo near the lake where they'd fallen apart and found each other again. Scarlett wore a simple ivory dress, nothing dramatic, no veil, just a soft smile and a heart wide open. David wore navy blue. He stood straighter now. A man who had once run from responsibility, now rooted in it. Mel was her maid of honor. Julia stood beside her too, not just in support, but in full acceptance. She'd come around. She'd seen the change. When Scarlett walked down the aisle, David didn't just cry. He wept. Not from guilt, not from regret, but from gratitude. When it came time for vows, Scarlett spoke from the heart. "I used to think love had to be perfect, that it had to be easy. But real love, it's messy. It breaks, it bends, and if you're lucky, it comes back stronger. David, you left, and I broke. But when you came back, you brought honesty, courage, and a new kind of love. One that I never expected, but I always hoped for. Today, I choose you. Again. Not because I forgot the past, but because I believe in our future." David took a shaky breath and held her hands. "I failed you once. I will never forget that. But these years have taught me something. That loving someone means showing up, not just in the good times, but when everything feels broken. You showed me grace, patience, forgiveness, and I promise, from this day forward, to keep showing up. For you, for Ethan, for us." There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Even Ethan, dressed in a tiny suit, clapped at the end and shouted, "That was awesome!" Laughter erupted, and just like that, they were married again. But this time, as different people, better people. The reception was held under strings of soft lights and paper lanterns. Music played. People danced. Scarlett and David swayed slowly under the stars, holding each other close. "I feel like I've finally come home," David whispered. Scarlett leaned into his chest. "That's because you have." The months that followed were calm, not boring, but peaceful. They moved into a house near the woods. Scarlett kept her job at the bookstore, now managing events and connecting with readers. She even began writing her own story, not to publish, just to remember. David worked hard. He built furniture in his spare time and turned the garage into a small workshop. On weekends, Ethan came over and learned how to sand wood, hammer, nails, and make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. They found joy in little things. Breakfast in bed on Sundays, movies under a blanket on rainy nights, reading aloud to Ethan until he fell asleep, curled up like a kitten on the couch. Sometimes Scarlett would wake up in the middle of the night, look at David sleeping beside her, and feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safety. Peace. A life lived fully. People in town stopped whispering. Instead, they smiled when they saw them together. "He really turned things around," they'd say. But Scarlett knew better. They turned it around together. Because love isn't about starting over. It's about choosing each other, even after everything. And they did. Every single day. It's been 5 years since Scarlett and David stood under that gazebo by the lake. The seasons have passed gently. The storms that once wrecked their hearts now feel like distant thunder, echoes of a different time. They live in a modest 2-story house tucked behind tall oak trees in the quiet outskirts of Asheville, North Carolina. The porch swings gently with the wind, and most days, you can hear the faint sound of music drifting from the open windows, David's old records, or Scarlett humming along while she cooks dinner. They live simply, intentionally, not because they have to, but because they choose to. Sometimes Scarlett still hears whispers in town, people who remember what happened, how he left, how he came back, how she forgave him. Some say she's too soft. Others say he didn't deserve it. But Scarlett doesn't care, because only she knows what it felt like to watch someone fall and then rise again. Only she knows what it means to love, truly love, someone who's done the hard work to change. And David? He never forgets what he almost lost. Every hug, every shared smile, every bedtime story with Ethan. He takes none of it for granted. Because love is not just what you feel, it's what you do. And every day they do it better. Their story didn't end with a perfect kiss or a dramatic rescue. It ended and began again with a choice. One that they make over and over, without hesitation. To love, to grow, to stay. And in a world full of people giving up too soon, they chose to begin again. And this time, they never looked back. And if this story moved you or even made you think, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone. And this story is a work of fiction. All characters, names, and situations are entirely made up and are not based on real individuals. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental.